I'm assuming all of you guys, most of my audience are people that are invested in cinema. If you don't know how many films were released in 2019, this is something that you probably should have been looking at, because it really does illustrate the impact that it's had on the studios, on production, on the influx of films into the cinema. And so you can see 2017, 2018, 2019, 850, 993, 910. And if you go back further than that, it's just all like 800. So there's a slow progression over time, but there's an influx. There's always more films in the cinema. Occasionally it hovers, but then it jumps. And then 2020 pandemic hit full force. 456 films in the cinema. This is when the platforms start going, right, this is people are expecting our revenues to be hit. We are going to go full force on getting people onto our streaming platforms at the beginning of the pandemic. Then you've got 2021, and studios don't know if they're going to be able to do theatrical releases the next year, so they cancel tons of productions and put them off, and whatever productions they do make, they put straight to their streaming platforms, because they're making so much money from streaming. Suddenly streaming is going absolutely crazy, so they're trying to put everything on the streaming platforms, get everyone over there. 2022, there was this illusion that things were back to normal. So by no means were we fully out of lockdowns and stuff like that, but there was a rhetoric that we were back to normal. But if you look at the amount of films that were released, because there was no films being made, really, not on the previous scale during 2021, they were just making the big blockbusters, but they weren't making the other films. And it was incredibly hard for a small studio, a small team to make a $10 million film that you could then justify a theatrical release that you'd never get. You'd only be able to go to a streaming platform, and streaming platforms do not pay the same amount as cinema does. Then you've got 2022, 493 films released in that. And revenues were way up in 2022. We got to almost 80% revenue with half the films that we had from 2019. And now we are in 2023. And this is where things are getting really interesting. We've had 94 films released in 2023. 94 films in about 1 month. And that is about a week delay on that. So basically that is the month of January. So let's just say that's 100, then 100 times 12. And let's say cut 2 months off just to get a discount. Then we got 100 times 10. We've got 1,000 films set to be released in 2023. I think we are definitely going to hit 900. I think there's a chance we may even hit the first year with 1,000 films released. Whatever happens to Cineworld, cinema is back. You're seeing streaming platforms finally acknowledging that they're not getting enough money from streaming, not to justify blockbusters. And even, right, if you were making enough money from streaming, why would you not want 2 releases? 1, where people pay to see it in a screen, and 2, when people pay for it on your streaming platform. They're paying the subscription anyway. If it's in the cinema for 40 days, it doesn't affect their subscription, whether they have a subscription with you. If anything, I think more people have gone to Paramount Plus because they saw Top Gun Maverick in the cinema. I think this is the time to look at those businesses that were hit really hard by the pandemic. And cinema, I'm really excited to say, is back in full force. Whether we retain ownership of Cineworld is another topic that we are now going to get into. But this is what I am excited to see, is like this sort of recognition, that validation, that anyone that said, oh, Cineworld did badly because cinema is dead, I'm like, no, it's not. Cinema was doing fantastic. It was up every single year. Cash flow, amount of films every single year up to 2019. The pandemic is the only friggin' reason that Cineworld is on its knees.